As Professor Hargis alluded to, this is the 50th anniversary of all things related to Judson, the 100th anniversary of our coming together with our founding school, Northern Seminary, and also the 200th anniversary of Adoniram Judson's being launched into the world. So this is an extremely significant year in the life of this campus. To celebrate that, I would call your attention to the banners that were put up just a few days ago. Thank you to Mary Doulabaum and all of her staff for arranging for those wonderful banners that will help us celebrate this year. As we thought about what we wanted to do this semester, and this chapel in particular, to kick off all that is transpiring here, it became pretty clear after a few of us put our heads together that the person that we should do that is a person who has been around here for almost every one of those 50 years. Not quite, but almost. And that is Dr. Stuart Ryder, affectionately known by all as Doc. Doc was my primary mentor when I was here as a student. I've referred to Doc very sincerely as a surrogate father figure to me, and I know to my brother Elliot especially, and to my sister Karen to a lesser extent. But Doc has just been hugely influential in my life personally, and has made his mark on this campus. You can't go anywhere on this campus without seeing a fingerprint of Dr. Stuart Ryder if you look carefully enough, and sometimes you don't have to look too carefully, it's right there. Like when you walk in the haywalk, boom, right there. So we have asked Doc to shed a little light on historical perspectives, and then when Doc is finished, we have invited Bill Boskeljohn, who is an alumnus and who is a member of the anniversary committee, to come and give some closing thoughts and a benediction. So he needs no welcome from most of us, but would you go ahead and do it anyway? Would you give a nice warm welcome to Dr. Stuart Ryder, Doc Ryder.
That's what happens when you've been a long-time father figure. Pretty soon you need your surrogate sons and daughters to help you up the stairs. What's that? I haven't really been here for 50 years, though I may look it. Considering how to start off this year, and in a very real sense, this is the keynote address for the 50th anniversary year, I decided to take all of us into a time machine and take you back 50 years, not January 16th, what is this year? 2013? But January the 16th, 1963. And I'm going to be speaking to you as though you were a prospective student or a continuing student from Northern Seminary. At any rate, either way, you'll be one of the first among the 90 students which Judson enrolled during the first year, 1963. 1964. But 50 years ago rather, there's a pretty good chance that you were probably enrolled in the 3-year undergraduate program at Northern Seminary in Chicago. Probably you were planning to go into some ministry when you received your Master of Divinity degree. But your seminary is now moving from Chicago, and the undergraduate program is going to be discontinued. So where are you? A few months before, in November of 1962, Dr. Benjamin Browne, who was president of the seminary, purchased an estate in Elgin, Illinois, which you probably had never heard of. where he plans to start a new evangelical Christian liberal arts college that will be called, yes, Judson College, in honor of Adoniram Judson, whose own ministry began in 1813, as you've just heard. Well, you're concerned as a prospective student about what is going to happen to you. You may be 1 year or 2 years into your 3-year undergrad program, and suddenly the program is disappearing. But Dr. Browne tells you that you will be able to complete your 3-year undergrad program at Judson, even though at that point there really was no Judson College. But you could even look at the 1963 catalog for a college that didn't actually yet exist, which has pictures of some other college, I don't know. And so naturally you're interested. You'd like to complete your degree under the leadership of Dr. Browne. So you and a few of your friends, the morning of January 16th, decide to drive out to Elgin and check out the location. Following your driving directions, you arrive come off the interstate and drive to the entrance of the property, which was then called Brayburn on Fox. And so, with eager anticipation, you go in along the road and see almost nothing. There's a small pond on your right, and if you look up, you can see a large house on the hillside. Everything else is either trees or grass. Now, this is where you're supposed to complete your studies in September, 6 months from now. Well, you're not the only one who might be worried at that point. Dr. Browne himself writes in his memoir, "We have the property. Now, where will the students eat and sleep?" Similar questions might be in your mind. What was Judson College? 10 acres, a large house on a hill, and a 3-car garage. But it had something more important than those buildings. It had the dream of a faithful and stubborn old man, like me, who would normally have been retired by that time. He was actually 70 years old. All right. Now I'm going to move our time machine forward, maybe 2 or 3 months. The previous owner of the house had remodeled the north side of the building, where the president's office is now, as a tea room type restaurant. Well, that's where Judson College students would be eating for the next 3 or 4 years. No commons. So if you were one of those students, you could be sitting at a table eating just where the president's desk is right now. The upstairs bedrooms were turned into administrative offices. The garage was remodeled as classrooms. It's no longer there, of course. The Fine Arts building has taken its place. It's much larger. But there was room for 3 or 4 classrooms in the garage and an upstairs apartment where they lived, the Judson's director of plant operations. But more important than these rearrangements is the fact that Judson had borrowed enough money from a local bank to construct a dormitory and a small apartment building, both of which are still there. However, banks are in business to make money. And so the Elgin Bank, it's actually First National Bank of Elgin, was hedging its bets. Someday just stand on this side of the pond and look over the pond to Volkman Hall, which is that building. And you'll see that it looks just like a motel. And that's because it was built as a motel in case Judson College failed or had to close down. The apartment building, where I've lived off and on for about 40 years, would then be turned into commercial rental units. And so Dr. Browne knew that there would be those 2 buildings to start. Now we are going to move ahead to September, when the students are supposed to be arriving. Well, the upper 2 floors, just as they are now, are dormitories where, get this, every student will be required to live unless they are from Elgin and live with their parents. The first floor, let me give you this list, you'll hardly believe it. I can hardly remember all of them myself. The first floor contains the college library, the post office, the bookstore, several classrooms, a science lab, faculty offices, and a student lounge. It was also the center for plant operations. The south end was where plant operations. That lounge had the only TV set on campus. Oh, I forgot. And there was also a printing press. Which was located where actually it turned out to be my old office my last few years. And by the way, no TVs were allowed in any dormitory room until the late 1970s. I was on the committee that made that decision. Now I regret it. This new Judson College will have 3 trimesters similar to quarters. You'll probably be taking 15 credit hours, 3 courses that will meet 5 days a week. Now listen to these numbers carefully. You'll be paying $15 per credit hour, $225 for each trimester, and $675 for the entire year. That's the tuition. Room and board, which includes sheets, fresh sheets for your beds, would cost you $309 per trimester. Therefore, apart from buying books, your total charges for the year at Judson University College will be $1,602. What's that amount to? About 3 courses today? And if you're enrolled for the full 3 years, the cost of your Judson degree will be $4,806. That's about what I was paying in 1947 at my college. Okay. Now, what would be the pluses and the minuses of enrolling at this new college? On the minus side, let's take that first. Judson was not accredited, even though most of your credit hours would probably be able to be transferred to another institution. There was no gymnasium. Remember, all we have is that building in Volkman Hall and the apartments. The sports program consisted of a men's basketball team completely made up of walk-ons who had to play in the gymnasium of St. John's Lutheran Church in Elgin. A little good news, a few years later, a donor gave $20,000 in order to purchase the property that would let Judson the campus go all the way down to the banks of the Fox River. In other words, that's the property where the soccer and baseball and softball fields are now located. About 1965, I believe that happened. So you see, the only entertainment on campus was that one TV in Volkman Lounge. Otherwise, students had to make their own entertainment, as we used to do when I was a child. Sort of like the Centennial. But only upperclassmen were allowed to have cars until about, and freshmen not until about 1980, I think. Okay, but the plus side. The small number of students you would meet, you would probably be able to know each one by name and perhaps a little bit about each one. And you would probably become friends with one or more faculty members who lived in the apartment or on the adjacent streets. We used to call Faculty Row because there were so many homes up there. As a result, each student and faculty member had an opportunity for the mutual support and mutual ministry. In the words of an old hymn, we share each other's joys, our mutual burdens bear. Lest that sound too sappy. Judson College was really not the New Jerusalem, but it was a tightly knit Christian community, which I myself experienced when I arrived in 1968. There was something about Judson that kept me here for 43 years. And I think it could be epitomized in the mission statement that Dr. Browne wrote for that 1963 catalog. A fellowship of youth and faculty, a worshiping community loyal to the Lord Jesus Christ and concerned with the work of his kingdom. An atmosphere in which students may be guided to a mature Christian commitment that brings the realization of Christian vocation in whatever field that student might choose. That's it. 51 words. During my years here, I've served on 2 committees to compose a new mission statement for Judson College. And I must admit that I had quite a bit of influence on those committees. Come up with 2 that I recalled, both of which were much longer, much longer than 51 words. Maybe that's a result of my influence, I don't know. But in all seriousness, I believe that Dr. Browne's brief, pointed, Christ-filled mission statement I don't believe we ever did any better than this. Thank you very much.